It's a major shot in the arm for India. The second consignment of the S-400 systems have been delivered to India, and Russia has expedited this delivery. S-400 is a generation ahead, more advanced than the S-300 systems that are being used here by Ukraine. Now, this is a very potent missile defense shield. This is also a very important signal that Russia is sending out, not just to India, but to the entire world. India too is talking about an independent foreign policy, not coming under the pressure of the Western world. We bring you our top story.
The world's most formidable air defense missile. Regarded around the world as a near matchless weapon system. Built by Russia and operated by only a handful of countries. And now, amidst Russia's escalating war in Ukraine, India has received its second consignment of the Russian weapon system. That's right. 3 months after receiving the first of 5 regiments of the S-400, the second regiment of his missile system arrived in India a few days ago. The delivery is being seen as a huge message beyond just the traditional Indo-US weapons supply channel. For starters, the delivery addresses India's concerns that Russian weapon delivery commitments would be delayed or hampered by the escalating conflict in Ukraine. By delivering the second S-400 regiment early, Putin has signaled that India is a priority partner and nothing, not even a war, should affect supply timelines to India. Second, the timing of the delivery is certain to raise eyebrows. Coming as it does amidst elevated pressure from Washington over India's arms procurement from Russia. The S-400 has been the centerpiece of US anger, pushing the conversation to the realm of sanctions and consequences recently. But by taking delivery of the weapon system, India has once again signaled that it will not bow to pressure from any side. Let's remember that the Indian Navy recently took delivery of a brand new US-built P-8I Naval Maritime Reconnaissance jet just last month. And therefore, no side can lecture the other side over India's military allegiance. But the S-400 has always raised geopolitical hackers. And this is certain to raise temperatures at a sensitive time for the world. For India, the missile could not have been delivered sooner, given the huge air defense gaps that are critical to be plugged. Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, this is a 39,000 crore rupee deal. India has contracted 5 S-400 systems. I quickly want to cut across to Executive Editor Shiv Arur for more on this huge development. Shiv, the signal that goes out, the message that comes out of the expedited delivery of the S-400 systems. What's the message that Russia sends to the West? What's the message that's coming to India?
Well, Gaurav, as you know, the S-400 isn't just any other weapon system. This is the largest single Indo-Russian defense deal. The S-400 has been, an intimidating weapon, widely regarded as the world's best air defense missile system. And it is also, as you remember, the centerpiece of, tensions between India and the United States. So much so that even sanctions had come onto the table, possibly, from the US side as a result of India actually getting the S-400. Now, it is to India's credit that it has been able to avoid any kind of adverse action from the United States. That's the importance of India. But the S-400 being delivered at this time is sure to raise international hackles, because the S-400 is a system that is regarded as quite controversial because of its capability. It's a system that the US had tried to fight against the delivery of Russia supplying this to India. The fact that it comes during the Ukraine crisis only adds to the entire, the volatility and flavor of this entire delivery. And let's remember that Putin has basically delivered this system before time, which is a signal all by itself. It basically shows that India's concerns about the entire conflict and war in Russia, in Ukraine, possibly hampering or delaying Russian commitments of weapons to India is totally settled now. Russia has basically said, no matter what, even if we have a war on our hands, India is priority number one as far as our weapons delivery is concerned, and that's a really, really big message to come at this time.
The S-400, an extremely potent missile defense shield, and Shiv, this couldn't have come a day too soon given the current situation and the tense standoff at the line of actual control. So, for the benefit of our viewers, the 5 systems that India has contracted for, where all are these being deployed and what does this mean for the standoff with China along the LAC?
Well, the first regiment of the S-400 was delivered a few months ago. It's already been deployed in the Punjab sector. This second regiment is in the process of being delivered. The first few components have already started arriving. They will be deployed in the northern sector once again. These are hugely capable air defense systems, Gaurav, that provide a large swath of, air defense shield to the many gaps that exist in our air defense cover. India has been saddled with these air defense gaps in many sectors as a result of piecemeal purchases, a variety of different systems that don't really talk to each other. The S-400 solves many of those problems. Not all, but it does solve many of India's air defense issues in certain sectors. There's a long way to go, but the S-400 has the kind of, formidable reputation it has because of the kind of technical capability and military capability it provides to its operators. Let's not forget that even China operates the S-400. Russia is in the process of, developing and deploying the S-500, which is a more advanced version. But the S-400 will go a long way in ramping up India's air defense cover in the country.
Shiv, many thanks. India Today's executive editor Shiv Arur there with the latest information on the S-400 systems. I now want to move on to the other big story we're tracking here on India Today, and that's the sinking of the guided missile cruiser, the Moskva. And that's a major shot in the arm as far as Ukraine is concerned, because Ukraine says 2 Neptune anti-ship missiles were fired, sinking the flagship of the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Navy. And it's a major disaster as far as Russia is concerned, not only because this was a very important ship, important for air defense, important for intelligence gathering, important for targeting shore-based assets of Ukraine, but also with information that the ship was carrying at least 2 nuclear warheads. Now, there is no official confirmation on this, but several Western countries want an independent and transparent investigations. Was Moskva armed with 2 nuclear warheads? We bring you this report.
The pride of the Russian Navy in the Black Sea off Ukraine's southern coast. 13,000 tons of pure weaponry, nearly 200 meters long, and with 500 warrior sailors on board. But the formidable guided missile cruiser you see in these images may be a thing of the past, because the Moskva has in all likelihood been destroyed. It started with the Russian Ministry of Defense revealing that a massive onboard fire had dealt extensive damage to this warship, with reports revealing that the entire crew of the Russian flagship had been evacuated from the vessel as onboard ammunition exploded in the blaze. But Russia's claim that the ship was damaged in an accident have been pushed back hard by Ukraine, which claims that the vessel was struck by Ukrainian Neptune cruise missiles fired from the Odessa region. Oleksiy Arestovich, an advisor to the Ukrainian president, also quipped in an interview today that he was aware of the fire but did not specifically know the cause, joking that maybe some Russian soldiers had been smoking where they shouldn't have been.
Здесь, мы всегда к этому готовы, пусть летит, посмотрим. Надо просто помнить, что на любой выстрел по нашим органам управления у нас найдется.
On day 50 of this conflict, Ukraine has scored a major hit. This cruiser was armed with anti-ship, anti-submarine and surface-to-air missiles, and this is an indication that despite 50 days of conflict, Russia hasn't been able to neutralize all the surface-to-air missiles and anti-ship missiles. And this is exactly what Ukraine's President Zelensky has been seeking: anti-ship missiles, surface-to-air missiles, longer-range missiles to take on the Russian forces, along with fighter jets and T-72 tanks.
A sensational claim being made by sections on the Ukrainian side are that a Bayraktar drone was flown over the Black Sea to distract the Moskva warship and divert its attention, while Ukrainian cruise missile units mounted their secret attack on the warship. This claim too cannot be confirmed, though Russia did release footage just 2 days ago of another of its Black Sea Fleet ships appearing to shoot down what they claim is a combat drone from the Ukrainian side. A fourth possibility being considered is that the ship ran into a bed of Ukrainian sea mines and exploded on contact, raising a big nuclear alarm. According to a few reports, the Russian warship may have actually been carrying 2 nuclear warheads. Ukraine has called for an urgent probe into the incident, considering that the possibility of it carrying nuclear warheads raises temperatures to an exponential degree. As this war of claims and counterclaims continues, what is undeniable is that Russia's most formidable warship in the Black Sea has been stricken and evacuated. Russia, as expected, has denied the ship sank due to a Ukrainian attack. The defense ministry claimed that the ship sank due to a storm after being gutted in a fire. But the Moskva, a ship named after Russia's beloved capital, will no longer be a weapon of war in this fight. And that's a big blow, no matter which way you look at it. With Gaurav Sawant in Dnipro, Ukraine, Bureau Report, India Today.
Russia hits back with vengeance. Moscow rained missiles on key Ukraine targets after its Black Sea Fleet flagship Moskva was sunk. Russia claims to have hit defense infrastructure that includes a missile manufacturing facility in Kyiv.
There is an apprehension that there will be an escalation in hostilities between Ukraine and Russia, increasingly with infrastructure being targeted in this country. It's not just bridges, it's not just defense manufacturing units. For example, the facility where the T-80 tanks are made in Ukraine, that's been targeted in the past. Missile manufacturing, petrol and oil depots are increasingly being targeted. The aim is to ensure that Ukraine does not have access either to military hardware or even fuel to continue this conflict for long.
Retaliatory strikes by Moscow have inflicted huge damage. According to reports, Russia has been targeting oil depots and military factories in Ukraine. Ukraine is silent about the strikes at its military installations. Earlier, Moscow had attacked the US cola giant's factory in Brovary on the outskirts of Kyiv.
A very systematic message being sent out not just to Ukraine but also to multiple other North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries and the United States of America that Russia will neither take restrictions lying down nor will it not retaliate to the sinking of Moskva. There are reports that in the coming days there will be an escalation in Russia's response to the sinking of the flagship fleet, Black Sea Fleet ship, the Russian Navy's Moskva, the guided missile destroyer Moskva. With cameraman Lalit Mohan Joshi in Brovary, Ukraine, Gaurav Sawant for India Today. There is an apprehension that the situation could escalate and deteriorate from this point on. The sinking of Russian Navy's flagship of the Black Sea Fleet, Moskva, has been a major disaster as far as Russia is concerned. It's a major victory point as far as Ukraine is concerned. But Ukraine is bracing for more attacks. On day 51, Russian forces seem to have moved in deeper towards Zaporozhye. So places in the south and places in the east in Ukraine, whether it's Mykolaiv or Zaporozhye Oblast or even Mariupol. Intense fighting is being reported in these areas. We bring you this report.
Entering into the 8th week of the war in Ukraine, this is the current state of play. More death, more destruction. And now with Ukraine not backing down, Russia has decided to ramp up their offensive and Kyiv is back on target. 51st day of the war and it's a sense of deja vu. Airstrikes in the citadel of Ukraine. Ukrainians in the city woke up to a fresh airstrike. This despite the Russian retreat weeks ago. Russia's fierce attack on Kyiv now is being seen as a retort to their warship being downed in Odessa. Particularly because this assault comes 24 hours after Moscow warned they would target establishments in Kyiv if Ukraine doesn't back off.
Almost through the night, air raid sirens kept going off, and not just here in Kyiv but almost across Ukraine. There are reports of 3 major missile strikes that have taken place in the province, not just in the capital, but in the province. Missiles have struck some other parts also, amidst reports that there will be a major escalation in the days ahead.
There's no end in sight to this war. After Russian President Putin said talks were deadlocked, Ukraine President Zelensky echoed a similar sentiment.
Yesterday evening, I was told that Ukrainian side has changed something again. I'm not aware of what exactly yet. But such inconsistency in approaching key issues creates some difficulties in reaching the final agreement, acceptable for everyone in the course of negotiations. And until it happens, the military operation will continue until its full completion.
Some are still arguing how harsh the sanctions against Russia should be. But what should be discussed here? When Russian troops repeat on our land what Europe probably saw during World War II.
Те, що Європа бачила хіба що під час Другої світової війни.
Meanwhile, the West is responding to Ukraine's plea for military aid. This is a video by Pentagon showing the loading of Javelin rockets intended for shipment to Ukraine. There's even a possibility of US President Joe Biden touching down in Kyiv after the high-profile visit of UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
Will you send senior officials to Ukraine?
Well, we're making that decision now. Thank you.
Who would you send?
What was the reason? Are you ready to go? Yeah.
Talks deadlocked, assaults peaking. Over 50 days of this conflict, and there's no end in sight to this bloodied war.
The threat which loomed large over Kyiv has receded a lot now. So it's a combination of all these factors probably which is encouraging Ukraine that probably it can now talk on its own terms and it does not have to cede Crimea to Russia or make any concessions in Donbass which Russia is asking for. And this is the reason we see there's a deadlock in the talks between these two countries now, and it is likely to remain so now because Finland and Sweden also have announced that they will be joining NATO, and all these factors probably will lead to escalation in war and diplomacy will take a back seat.
With Gaurav Sawant and Rajesh Pawar, Bureau Report, India Today.
And I now want to cut across to India Today's editor defense, Abhishek Bhalla, who joins us for more on the story. Abhishek, the sinking of Moskva and the retaliatory strikes. Do we see an escalation on ground? You've been speaking to a number of officials on ground. What is it that Ukraine now sees in the days and weeks ahead?
Gaurav, this certainly seems to be a long haul, and one cannot expect a complete end to the battle because lots of areas, especially in the east of Ukraine, are in complete Russian control. In fact, I've been talking to people and they've told me that there were families that have been evacuated in all those places, including Mariupol, where, I met somebody, he said that his family was stuck there, old parents, and they had to be evacuated. There are thousands of such stories from across the eastern region. region, and it definitely seems that this is going to continue. There's a big thrust as far as the eastern and the southern side is concerned, from where the Russian forces are consolidating, even though it seems that life is limping back to normalcy in places like Kyiv. But there is still anxiety, there is still apprehension that there could be, retaliation from the Russian side, like we've seen recently, just yesterday, when one of the military facilities was attacked.
A lot has been written and spoken of Ramzan Kadyrov, the Chechen leader and the Chechen fighters in this war. India Today's Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan, at an undisclosed location, spoke to some of the Chechen fighters who are not just in Mariupol but are part of the operations that are taking place beyond Mariupol now. Ramzan Kadyrov had said that in case President Putin gave them the green light, they would target Kiev after Mariupol. Is that their aim? India Today's Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan with this India Today World Exclusive with Chechen fighters.
Ramzan Kadyrov, the dreaded leader of Russia's Chechnya region and an ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin, directed his army to Ukraine. Kadyrov himself was in the near-fallen city of Mariupol, overseeing the first few weeks of the war. Chechen army continues to add arsenal to Russian attack. India Today's Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan reached their secret location in Melitopol.
This is an India Today exclusive in an unknown location in the hinterlands of Melitopol. These are Chechen fighters.
Чеченцы здесь участвуют для того, чтобы помочь народу Украины.
The main motivation for the Chechenian guys who came here, it was the history, because the Chechnya also suffered from the terroristic regime some years ago, and it's very understandable for him, for all Chechenians, how the people in Ukraine suffer from this regime.
Chechen army has turned a hotel in this area into their base camp.
There was a time when the Chechens were fighting the Russians. Today they're fighting with the Russians. And like Commander Murad said, that they are taking orders not just from Ramzan Kadyrov, who is their president of Chechnya, but also their commander-in-chief, President Putin. And that's why the two flags over here represent exactly what the Chechen fighters are here to do.
These soldiers claimed that they were trained in a place called Hankala in Chechnya. They were given further training in Crimea before entering Ukraine.
Can you imagine how it's possible for Ramzan Kadyrov as a president who reconstruct his republic to make order to kill somebody somewhere? If it is interesting for you, you can come to Grozny and to watch everything by your own eyes.
Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov has been accused of a wide array of human rights violations under his rule. Kadyrov has been accused of ordering torture and extrajudicial killings, along with a string of assassinations of Russian journalists and human rights activists. A number of his Chechen critics who sought asylum abroad were attacked or killed on foreign soil. Fighting in Ukraine for Russia, Kadyrov, as recently as on 11th April, posted a video on his Telegram channel in which he said there will be an offensive by Russian forces not only on the besieged port of Mariupol, but also on Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities.
I received reports from all commanders and maps. The goals are clear and we start to work precisely. Our offensive actions will not only be in Mariupol, but in all the other settlements, cities and villages.
Chechen commander Murad's son was captured by Ukrainians from the battleground. But the father in him stands still in his conviction to carry out the orders of his leader. Chechen forces in Ukraine make the war even deadlier with every passing day. With Geeta Mohan and video journalist Satya, Bureau Report, India Today.
The situation is tense. It could be taking a turn for the worse. But India Today's team of reporters on Ground Zero will continue to get you the latest. But that is all that I have for you on this India Today special broadcast from Kyiv. Many thanks for watching. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.